What is going on, everybody? It is Dylan with DFS, bringing you a brand new video. Today's video, I'm going over wide receivers to target for Week 2's main slate. This is basically just cash plays and tournaments, so let's get into it. So the three top wide receivers, Stephon Diggs, Jamar Chase, and Amon-Ra St. Brown, are all cash plays for me. Diggs having an opportunity for a good bounce-back game. They're high favorites. Really good matchup against Vegas secondary, and they have a top 10 PFF pass block advantage, so that's huge for someone like Diggs. But obviously he is the most expensive wide receiver, so it's hard to get him and a Josh Allen stack and still have a good lineup. But if you're able to do it, I love Stephon Diggs. Next is Jamar Chase. I think a Burrow and Chase stack is just as viable, if not better, than the Josh Allen Stephon Diggs. Baltimore now missing three starters, two on the offensive line, a secondary, so that just means a huge advantage for Cincinnati in this divisional game. Baltimore allowed 38.9 fantasy points to wide receivers last week. We all know Cincinnati has a triple-headed dragon of wide receivers in Jamar Chase, T. Higgins, and Tyler Boyd, so look for these wide receivers to have a really good game if Joe Burrow and that offense don't do what they did in Week 1. Another top 10 PFF pass block advantage, so that's great to them. And then Amon-Ra, 7,800. Detroit has a top 5 PFF block advantage. Words are hard. And they also gave up 52.2 fantasy points to wide receivers last week, and that was against the Rams. We know what Amon-Ra is capable of. Just another high total game and a great matchup for Amon-Ra. So 7,800. So all three of these wide receivers are definitely wide receivers I'm okay with paying in cash, targeting, going after all of that. Next is Davante Adams at 7,600. Jacoby Myers is out, which is huge for someone like Davante Adams. That means it's him and Hunter Renfrow pretty much, and then tight ends. So we'll see what that looks like come Sunday against Buffalo. It's a good matchup for him. They're expected to be huge underdogs, so that means they're going to be behind, which means they're going to pass more than run. So look for someone like Davante Adams to get a little more volume in a matchup like that. So 7,600, I love Davante Adams. Calvin Ridley is another one. Now, this one's interesting. I think Calvin Ridley has everything to be a top 12 fantasy wide receiver this season. This is a huge game. It's a 51-point total. It's the highest. I keep saying it in every video, but he's a really good run back piece. So if you like a Mahomes-Kelsey stack, Calvin Ridley's another expensive player to get. Don't get me wrong, expensive player, but in a high total game like this, he's definitely somebody good to have a running back player on. Kansas City, 35.9 fantasy points to wide receivers last week, so Calvin Ridley is definitely a play. Keenan Allen, 7,100, a really good matchup for him. Tennessee gave up 53.3 fantasy points to wide receivers, and that was the Saints last week, and that was in a very low-scoring game. So I think he's a good stack option if you like Justin Herbert in this matchup, 7,100. I love Keenan Allen. DeAndre Hopkins is a tournament play for me at 6,700, and that's just because, one, he's questionable, which means he's not fully himself, but he's going against a team that gave up over 80 fantasy points to wide receivers. Now, granted, 44 of those were to Tyreek Hill, but Tennessee didn't look absolutely terrible outside of Ryan Tannehill, but nonetheless, I have the Chargers as a underrated defense. If they can lock it in, I think they could have a really solid defense throughout the year. It's not the greatest matchup for DeAndre Hopkins by all means. The PFF grade isn't great, but it's someone with a name like DeAndre Hopkins going in a matchup to where if the Chargers get lead and DeAndre Hopkins is healthy and playing, they could be behind and pass the ball more, and someone like DeAndre Hopkins benefits from it. That's why he's a tournament play, because it takes a lot for a scenario like that to happen, but I still think he's a piece to target. T. Higgins, it's almost the same as the Jamar Chase. Another great matchup. The fantasy points, PFF grade. It's just a huge pay down. It's $1,500 for a pay down for T. Higgins. Remember, he was targeted 8 times, just did not bring in any of those targets. He's a big third down receiver for Joe Burrow, so that's someone to look at as well. Mike Evans at 6,200 is a very solid middle tier price receiver, right? 6,200, so you're not paying a lot, you're not paying under 6,000, so these 5,500 receivers pretty much, but right in the middle, 6,200 Mike Evans. Tampa Bay has the best PFF pass blocking advantage this week going against the Bears, who got torched, I guess, in the receiving game. I wouldn't really say torched, but Green Bay, when they needed a pass good against the Bears. So Mike Evans, 6,200 being the number one target for Baker as of right now. Really great matchup, just corner to receiver matchup is great for Mike Evans. So 6,200, I really like Mike Evans. And then a $200 cheaper is Chris Godwin. It's the same thing as Evans for Godwin. I just prefer Evans in this, but I think you could go Chris Godwin. He has a really good matchup as well. I think his matchup is actually better than Mike Evans, so a $200 pay down, I could see Godwin outscoring Evans. It's just for a safer play, I'd prefer Evans, but you could play Godwin either way, and I think it's still a good play. Then down here at 5,800 is Brandon Ayuk, who had the second best wide receiver fantasy game going against the Rams. Their offense is just so many weapons between Debo, Brandon Ayuk, Christian McCaffrey, George Kittle, the offensive line, Brock Purdy, performing as good as he does. So 5,800 Brandon Ayuk. They're a huge favorite in this game. I think it's almost at 8 points now. Really bad secondary for the Rams. I think what happened with Seattle was a fluke. So I believe Brandon Ayuk should have a really good game. Mike Williams, it's the same thing as Keenan Allen, right? It's just a pay down option. So Keenan Allen, you're paying $7,100. Mike Williams, you're paying $5,700. I still think he's a good play. You could play him. If salary permitted, you wanted to get some action in this game, you could pay down $1,400 for Mike Williams. Down at $5,600 is Deebo Samuel. So it's the same thing for Samuel as it is Ayuk. I just think the matchup is better for Deebo than Ayuk. I believe this is a game where Deebo can excel a little more than Ayuk. So 5,600 Deebo Samuel is someone that I would play over Brandon Ayuk as of right now. I just believe the matchup and everything is better for him. DJ Moore is a tournament piece for me, right? I don't love the matchup, but Tampa Bay did give up 49.2 fantasy points to wide receivers last week, and that was Justin Jefferson, Jordan Addison, KJ Osborne. So it's a good it's a decent to good matchup, right? It's not great, but it's not bad either, right? Tampa Bay has some weapons on both the offense and defensive side that people I think overlook, but hopefully we can get a DJ Moore more than 2 targets, right? That's the hopeful of bringing him to Chicago. Jacoby Myers is out right here, so like I said, that affects Devontae Adams and Hunter Renfrow, more Adams and Renfrow. Christian Kirk is a value piece to me. I think, in all honesty, looking at everything, his matchup is better. That doesn't mean the volume will be better for him, though. Kansas City has pieces on defense that are very overlooked as well. But it's definitely a huge pay down. You're paying $7,200 for Ridley. Christian Kirk, you're paying $5,100. So $2,100 pay down for some exposure as a run back piece in the Kansas City Jacksonville if you really like Kansas City that much. I see a way where Kirk outscores Ridley, even though Ridley gets more volume. Zay Flowers at $5,000. The price per volume, right, being you got the most targets for Baltimore receivers, it is crazy. $5,000, right? So Cincinnati has a lot of advantages going in this game. For Baltimore to pass the ball, look for someone like Zay Flowers to have another really good game, make a case for his Rookie of the Year candidate as well. He's a really good run back option, right? So you're paying the Burrow Chase stack, or Burrow Higgins even at that. Zay Flowers is $5,000. He's a very good cheap run back play in my opinion. So Zay Flowers is another cash play for me, not a value, but a cash play for me that I like. Marquise Brown at $4,900 is a good value piece in my opinion, right? The Giants aren't super stacked anywhere. I think there's a lot of holes in their team top to bottom. He's the number one target for this team, but it's not like the targets are good, right? Dobbs is throwing him the ball. The offensive line is very very bad, right? They have one of the worst PFF pass blocking advantages, right? But it's Marquise Brown. Regardless of all of that, he's someone who, if he gets the ball, right, that is the if he gets the ball, can make some crazy magic happen. So 4,900 Marquise Brown is someone that I want to get some exposure to if you're playing 150s. And then Puka at 4,900, right? The price is good. I don't think the matchup is good. But with being an underdog means you're going to pass the ball more. So regardless if it's good volume or not, volume is still volume, right? So if Puka gets another 10 plus targets and brings in 7 for 50, right? So 12 fantasy points at 4,900, you're getting some good value there. In a matchup, I just see San Fran walking all over the Rams, but the Rams surprised me last week and lost me some good potential money against Seattle. So Puka at 4,900 is definitely an option to look at. Nico Collins 4,800. CJ Stroud just got popped up literally 10 minutes ago on the injury report for some shoulder discomfort, is what it sounds like. But he was the number one target for him last week, going against Indy, who their secondary is bad. So I could see a scenario where if hopefully Stroud is healthy, that Nico Collins gets targeted quite a bit in this matchup. I believe it's just going to be a run game, in my opinion, between both teams. But when having to pass the ball, Nico Collins is the guy to look out for on the Houston side. Tutu, same thing, for what he did last week. I don't love the play, but the price is good for what they did last week. Kadarius Toney, I'm going to get probably a decent amount of hate on this one, but I think he's a really good tournament piece this week. Had a absolutely terrible week 1, right? But it's still a 51-point total. Kansas City's going to pass the ball. They brought him in for a reason last season. He had a bad game. It happens. It was really bad. Don't get me wrong. But I believe that he has the capabilities of having a really good fantasy week. And this is a matchup where it can happen against Jacksonville. It's not the greatest matchup. They have some really solid secondary pieces. But he's going to be on the field a lot. So he has a potential for some volume. Treylon Burks down here at 4,500. I would be more confident in playing Burks and Toney for tournaments, right? Still not a great matchup, but for what the Chargers allowed, Tyreek Hill, Jalen Waddle, and some scrubs, I guess. Treylon Burks is a promising year 2 wide receiver, and the number 1 corner is going to be on D-Hop, right? Jones. So look for Treylon Burks to get some opportunities there away from DeAndre Hopkins. Van Jefferson, same as Tutu, right? Jalen Hyatt, I think, is a sneaky tournament play for me. I'm going to get a little bit of exposure to him. There's not a lot of ownership on him just anywhere. So going against Arizona, there's no good secondary there at all besides Budda Baker, but that's a safety. He can't cover everybody. I think the Giants are going to be strong on the run game between Daniel Jones and Saquon Barkley. So look for Jalen Hyatt to be a piece to target on the pass game. They didn't really use them at all last week, but you got to understand Dallas destroyed them, right? Jalen Hyatt, I think this is a better game script for him, so he's definitely someone. And then Tyler Boyd, if you want to stack 2 Cincinnati wide receivers, right? Tyler Boyd, you could put with either Chase or Higgins. You're paying $3,800 for him. He's a really good piece to have a double stack. So someone I like down at $3,800, someone you're getting some good value out of. Rashee Rice, $3,800, right? Red zone threat for Kansas City. Someone to look at, someone that can score 2 touchdowns off 2 receptions for 2 yards, right? Someone like that. So that's something to look at. Josh Reynolds at $3,700 is another piece. It's a good tournament play for the number 2 wide receiver in this matchup for Detroit. So 3,700 Josh Reynolds, right? Same info as Amon-Ra, just he's not Amon-Ra at all, right? But he's playing that outside, so tougher matchup, which is why I have him here as a value, not really a tournament, but has that capabilities. Jaden Reed, we're watching for the injury news, could be a good play with Watson out again, and then Tank Dell, 3,200, which is why I have him highlighted here. Like I said, it's probably not going to be a pass game for either team, but if so, like Nico Collins is the number 1 target, but Tank Dell, CJ Stroud wanted him for a reason. Eventually, maybe not this year, maybe next year. they're going to get some type of connection. So every now and then they're probably going to have a good game. This is a game where I like Houston's pass game if they have to pass. So Tank Dell at 3,200 I think is a very solid pay down. So hope you guys did enjoy this video. If you did, please leave a like and subscribe. If you guys like this page, I don't have any of the smash plays. I don't put those in until Saturday, Sunday for subscribers to look. So if you guys are interested in that, the link for our Discord will be in the description down below. Feel free to leave any comments or questions on this page in the comments, and I'll get back to you guys as soon as I can. So thank you guys, and I will see you in the next one.